Hi, I'm Dr. Peter Amerman. I'm the author of the book, The Integrated Leader, which talks about how we can integrate our faith in every area of our lives and how we can determine and fulfill God's calling on our lives. And how do you know that? How do you determine that? And then once you know what it is, what do you do with that? You can find this book on Amazon.com or on my website at drpeteramerman.com. Last week, we talked about how terminal thinking has really affected higher education. And this week, we're going to look at what does integrated thinking look like, particularly in the example of Nehemiah. And I've grown to admire Nehemiah as a man of God who had a great purpose in his life. And so getting back into the background, who was he? Well, Nehemiah was a man who demonstrated the power of a man who was focused on a higher purpose for his life. He overcame tremendous obstacles. He overcame tremendous pressure and problems to accomplish one of the most amazing ancient construction projects ever in rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem. It was a large wall. The wall was about a mile and a half in length. It was about 20 feet thick, ranged from 25 to 50 feet high in places. Many archaeologists believe that the walls of Jerusalem that were built in Nehemiah's day were the same walls that surrounded the city in Jesus' day as well. But this wall of Jerusalem was built by Kings David and Solomon around 1000 to 950 BC. And was destroyed in 586 BC by Nebuchadnezzar. So that's a little bit of background as the people of Israel were deported into Babylon. The Jews returned to Babylon under Zerubbabel in 538 BC. And Nehemiah returned about 90 years later, and the temple and the city had been destroyed about 140 years. But he rebuilt the walls of Jerusalem with a large team of leaders and workers, and he did that in just 52 days. Not only that, the most amazing outcome is that it says even the enemies of Nehemiah acknowledged that this project could not have been done except that it was done with the help of their God. And that's in Nehemiah 6:16. So the project was completed over 470 years before Jesus rode through those walls on Palm Sunday, and later was taken through these walls in his trial and crucifixion to establish his throne forever in that city. So, to get this great project done, who was the man who got it done? Who was Nehemiah? Well, the name means the Lord comforts. And indeed, he represented comfort of the Lord to the people of Israel when they were in a very vulnerable state. They returned to a ruined land. They had shared a dream of rebuilding the temple and the city of David. And so they were God's chosen people coming back to their promised land. So Nehemiah, as a leader, had to be a very focused leader. He also had to be tough-minded. He was tough-minded, but he was tender enough to weep before the Lord and the people when he heard the news about Jerusalem. He also had the strength to stand up to formidable opposition from some powerful people. And yet he was trustworthy and dependable enough to be trusted by a powerful king. He was a cupbearer, which meant that he was to taste test the king's wine for poison, meaning that he was a dispensable, disposable person, because if the cupbearer tasted it and it was poison, he would die and they'd just get the next cupbearer. So he was expendable, but he was still close enough to be trustworthy and trustworthy enough to be in this inner circle of the king's council. So Nehemiah was God's man to get the job done. He was a man of responsibility. He didn't wait for others to lead. He took the responsibility when others sort of talked about a project that needed to be done, but he said, I'm the one to do it. He was a man of vision. He was able to communicate a vision in such a way that he was able to get buy-in from others and get them to participate actively and do this great project. He was a man of great prayer. At every turning point in the whole story of Nehemiah, you find Nehemiah prayed. Nehemiah prayed. Nehemiah prayed. He did that over and over and over again. He was a man of action. He stepped up to the plate and said, I am the man to get it done, when others were saying, someone needs to get this done. He was a team player and a team leader. He was able to organize these people. He was able to enlist their cooperation of this great project. He was able to keep them on track, even when the going got tough. He said, we got to keep on this project. He was a man of compassion. He renounced his own privileges to settle a dispute among his people. And he was a man of great determination. He was able to withstand great pressure and intimidation and remain focused until the task was done. And so the results of his work speak for itself, right? There was stability for the people. There was stability for the land. Even today, archaeologists have discovered parts of this wall in their excavations around Jerusalem. And Sue and I hope to go there someday. Love to see it. I saw it many years ago. I saw it about 45 years ago. I'd love to see it again. So how does this relate to you and me? Well, in your work, do something that will last. Do something that dozens, hundreds, even thousands of years later, people will talk about, man, he did this for the glory of God. I heard a great quote, said, only one life will soon be passed. Only what's done for Christ will last. And so that is what we need to focus on. What is the work that I can do, even within whatever other work I do? Whether it's my career, whether it's my family, whether it's in my church, in everything I do, let me do something that will last for Jesus Christ. Next week, I'm going to start and show how this process began by going into step one, concern. That is, who do I ask? What questions do I ask? How do I begin this process of integrating my faith into my life purpose?